in December. I remember how it felt to be a child. This old house still feels the same. All the family will be here in just a while. I hope Daddy gets here first to build the fire. He's the only one who has that special touch. And my sister and her kids and our grandma who we love so very much. Oh, I'm glad we'll be together for an evening in December. We'll watch the falling snow and hold each other close. I'm so glad we're here together for an evening to remember on this night, on this December night. That's what I imagined, but here's what we're doing today. Sometimes it seems so very, very lonely. And we miss those special people we hold dear. Though our calendars are full, at least for this one night we'll all be here. How we need to spend this evening in December. And while the smallest memories touch our very core, there's a warmth I can't explain, and I feel the love of those who've gone before. And we're glad we're here together on this evening in December. We'll watch the falling snow and hold each other close. I'm so glad we're here together for an evening to remember on this night, on this December night. Keep the fire burning here until we all come back next year. And I'm glad we're here together for an evening in December. We'll watch the falling snow and hold each other close. I'm so glad we're here together for an evening to remember on this night, on this December night. That's kind of a hard song, but that's why we're here. We're here because we're grieving. Many of us are grieving in very poignant ways tonight. But we want to bring out the mourning. We want to bring out tonight the expression of that grief. My dad always said, joy expressed is joy increased. Grief expressed is grief diminished. So our hope tonight, not to open the wounds so much in a negative way, but just to gently clean them and heal them. And I just pray tonight that this will be a time of bringing peace and healing to each one of your hearts. We have a varied schedule this evening, and I do have to say, my mom woke up this morning not feeling well. So thank the Lord, we had put 98% of her presentation on a video, so we will be seeing that together. And that will be our next thing here, but she had a few things she did want me to share. Chris was sharing about grief and mourning is kind of what's the very premise of the Grief Share program and group that they use here in town. There's so many wonderful resources, and that has been one that we feel like we have actually seen some of the most dramatic and some of the most healing growth. And so we've continued to use that for quite a number of years. So much of what you see tonight will actually be stories of people that have been through that program with my mom. And she just feels so thankful and grateful and so privileged to be able to provide that to those of you that have been, and maybe some of your interests might be piqued tonight. And maybe just what is said here from that group, what they have learned, I know that their heart is to help others heal because of their pain and the healing that they've experienced. They want to bring the healing to each one of you tonight. One of the important things about the grief group is that they gather together and they find safe people to express, to mourn with, and that becomes medicine to their souls. Am I right? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads here that have been there. And so that is a lot of what they will talk about, the journey from mourning to joy. And that kind of can sound a little callous and crass right now in this tough season. But keep listening. Stay tuned. Mom says, well, most of us have never been taught how to deal with the passing of loved ones. It's so important to start teaching the young ones right now as it comes into your family. And I see a couple here that know full well about that. They've been through a lot just in the last year. Several of our own are here, having lost dear loved ones this last year as well. And so we feel it's so important to teach you guys and to extend the hand to you that you are part of this whole group tonight, you guys. Your grief matters. It brings so much to the rest of us for you to be able to express that. And for you guys to have gone to the services, I was there with you at the funerals, to bring children and allow them to be part of that, to view and to express their experience. Helps them to learn early. Just like we learned to tie our shoes at 5 years old. As grief continues to come in all of our lives, things happen all throughout life. If they learn these things as young people, it just gives them the edge that a lot of us did not have. And so that was something that Mom really wanted to bring out today. You will see a couple of the coloring books, just a little highlighting of the coloring books that my mom and some of her friends have designed just for that purpose. You'll notice over in the corner, they're Heavenly Hugs. Feel free to take them. They're for kids of all ages. If you need a hug, be sure to grab one on the way out your door. I don't want to say too much. I think most of this is in the program. But those were some highlights that she really wanted to share. And I believe one more. I had a cousin who posted on Facebook just this morning, and my mom saw it as she woke up not feeling well. She was on Facebook and she saw this. It's a beautiful scene, almost exactly like that one that my cousin put up. And she says, knowing nothing about what we're doing today, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. So many times the sweet memories can grow into something so joyful as we work through this difficult time now. So Psalm 126:5 again says, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. So don't be afraid of those tears. There are Kleenexes on every table. Grab them now if you would like to. And we're going to roll this video on full screen. And I'm going to come over, and a lot of this are just slides. So Mom and I are going to take turns reading the slides, and I'm going to just go ahead and try to keep up with this. So you'll see what the people have to say, and then I will try to read it as well. Feel free to move your chairs if you need to be able to see. So my mom is Amy Jo Roland, for anyone that is not aware of that. Here's some things you'll discover at Grief Share. How to handle the overwhelming emotions, where to find strength to go on, and what to expect in days to come. how to grieve in a way that is healthy and uniquely suited to you, and what the Bible says about death, grief, and heaven. These are real-life stories of hope and healing from our local grief share group here, and several of the people involved are actually here this evening, not all of them. Linda Beck, her husband died in 2018. When I lost my husband David suddenly to a heart attack in the driveway of our dream home we'd only lived in for 2 years, I felt my life had gone with him. The despair, the fear, the loneliness, the isolation, even the physical pain came crashing down. A friend gave me a blank book that said "Missing You" on the cover for me to journal in. I hated that book, and at that time it represented the hole left in my heart. But as time went on, I started seeing little sayings, quotes, scriptures, cards, and song lyrics that reminded me of him, of David, and of God's faithfulness. And I decided that God wanted me to put them in that book. It would become my hope book. I kept reading in Psalms, the prayer 94:19. When anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy. Each lonely night I would work on it, and it would push me to ask many hard questions about how a kind and loving Father could put me through this. But then one day, as I was working on the book, I found a scripture that pointed me to the fact that God himself had been through what I had been through also by losing a son. And he had demonstrated it first. That really brought me hope and encouragement, as stated in Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. God is still writing my story, and David won't be appearing in the next chapters or the next book I put together. But I know I can always refer back to my Missing You book and highlight the best times and keep him part of my whole story. Linda did. This is a bear they made out of some of David's shirts. Tammy shared her adult son was hit by a car that had run a stoplight in the summer of 2020. This is pretty raw for her still. I've only been through 2 of the grief share lessons since my son was recently killed in an automobile accident. I'd gone through the whole course before, following another death in my family, and I intend to continue with it, again, because being in grief share with others who have also gone through grief situations will be helpful to me. I'm still having a very hard time with the loss of Nick. I can't get through a day without crying. It's still very hard, but I'm comforted and strengthened to think about seeing Nick again in eternity. Tammy's found comfort in several printed items with Nick's picture and words of remembrance. She's got a jacket and several other things too, I believe. On grief share and other resources after her husband passed in March of 2020 following a long illness. Here's what Jane had to say. Glenn Livingston, my husband of 47 years, passed away March 27, 2020 at the age of 70. I don't think I could have been able to go on without him if it wasn't for the help and support of Amy, Heidi, St. Croix Hospice, and all the books on how to cope with grief. There were literally stacks of them that Jane read and several reread, maybe several times. they did and are still doing for me to help me get through this difficult time in my life. Jane Livingston. You're welcome, but it's not us. Kids grieve too. Little Shepherd's Dreamland and Dreaming of Heaven color books by Amy Jo Roland are designed to help children to be cozy with Jesus and using their imaginations about heaven and happy adventures with loved ones in forever. You guys have seen this before, haven't you? This is the story of a little shepherd who comes to a little guy in his dreams and takes him on an adventure in eternity. It's pretty exciting stuff. The next picture, I think it's, yes, this is my favorite. Their blankies turn into all kinds of vehicles as they go through the night. Mom designed these just from, I think, her own child heart, the grief that she experienced as a young woman, and what she would have liked to have had, I believe. Things that she has learned over the years, the decades, that she wants you guys to know now. We've got treasures laid up in heaven. Leslie. Her husband passed away in December of 2018 before she could talk with him one more time. It was a Saturday, December 15th, 2018, and I was excited to get back to preparing for our daughter. She was out of state, I was out of state, she had surgery. My husband was failing in health at home, but I was headed back to him. Her surgery went well. She was released from the hospital, so I made plans to fly home the next morning. At 4:45 a.m., I was awakened by my cell phone ringing. My heart sank as I knew exactly who would be calling. Oh Lord, how do I get through this day? I need your strength and wisdom now to get through the coming days. See, I felt such sorrow as I remembered that when I left for Arizona, I wanted to ask forgiveness for whatever words I had ever spoken that might have been taken wrong. Something I'd done or not done, but I was about to deliver what I wanted to say and I paused. I just leaned down to hug and kiss him, said I loved him so much, I would be back soon. I could say the other later. Looking back, did I take these things for granted? Did I assume too much? Surely I thought I would have made it back in time. How do I deal with the fact that it didn't work out? This is a journey I will not soon forget. This is where I found God's mercies are always new and never ending. From Lamentations 3:22 through 23, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, and his mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. It was a year later when Roland's were putting on an evening of remembrance. I picked up a friend whose husband had passed away in October and went to the community center where it was held. Finally, there was some help in getting us through this season of sorrow that we are now in. They had speakers who had been there and introduced Grief Share and other support resources. This was an answer to prayer. What began as a cry for help ended with shouts of gratitude and joy. Just like the verse it says. We began attending Grief Share and I watched my friend discover truths and relationships that radically transformed her life and outlook as well. Thank you, Roland and staff, for your love and dedication in making this a reality by serving others. Again, it's just our privilege. Can't take credit. Let me finish with this from a book I picked up along the way. Grief never ends, but it changes. It is a passage. It's not a place to stay. It's not a sign of weakness or a lack of faith. It is a price of love. Sue Wesley. Vicki Christensen survived many losses in 2 decades. A 6-year-old son died in a house fire. She experienced a divorce, and both of her parents passed away before her second husband passed away. She's going to tell her own story here.
My husband David died in May 29th of 2019, and it devastated me. We'd only been married for 2 years when he got diagnosed with cancer, and then 2 years later he passed away. I've experienced loss before my husband. I lost my son in 1989. He was 6 years old, and he died in a house fire. And then I lost my father in 2000, and then my mother in 2014. I've experienced these losses, but when I lost my husband, it knocked me off my feet. Over November, when I finally decided we needed to reach out, because I wasn't able to get control, get a handle on what I was feeling. And I'm a strong Christian, and I know the Lord was bringing me, but I believe He led me to Grief Share. And Grief Share, it changed my life. It showed me that what I was going through was not unusual, that I wasn't losing my mind, that it was very normal, the things that I was going through, but it also showed me that I wasn't only grieving for my husband, but I was also grieving for my son, and for my dad, and for my mom, because at the time that they died, I didn't have time. I had life, my life, and you have to keep going. My husband at that time, he was severely hurt, and he had to be taken to Iowa City, and he was in a coma for 2 weeks, and they had to do skin grafts, and I had to go home, and because I had my daughter, who was 3 at the time, who I was able to get out of the house, and but I had to go home. I had to do funeral arrangements for my son. I had to do the funeral and go back to Iowa City because Roger was having surgeries. I didn't have time to take the time to grieve. I couldn't, because I had to be strong. I had too many things I was responsible for that I had to do. And then as my husband got better, was taking care of him, and then protecting him, because there's a lot of things that kept me from mourning, from mourning for my son. And I still do every day, the ways, but Grief Share has helped me understand the importance of it, allowing myself to do it, and how it'll heal me and strengthen me, but it also has put a passion in my heart to help others, and to the thought of somebody out there feeling like I did, and not knowing that there's people out in this world that you care and they love. They're there to help you and love you through it. And I want to be part of that to help other people.
So does that kind of explain why we say from mourning to joy, and that can come at you kind of like, well, I need to mention joy?
Absolutely. Because of my relationship with the Lord, it's easier for me to understand how you go from devastating mourning to feelings of joy. Somebody who may not know the Lord that way may not be able to understand it right away. They may see it as the joy part is joy of your circumstance, and that's not what it means. And the joy that you get through the Grief Share program is because it's God-based and it's Scripture-based. He shows you the joy that comes from Christ in your life that helps you overcome your mourning and overcome your pain. And that's when you know what joy is all about. It's been a blessing to my life in many, many ways. It's been a blessing. And in the process, I have met and got many new friends that that's a blessing that came out of my devastating mourning, is that I was blessed with new people and new friends that I got out of this. So,
One of the valley, didn't you? Amazed you.
Vermont, it helps you have empathy and compassion on somebody else who's going through that now. And you can actually use your pain to help heal theirs, if that makes sense.
This is just beautiful.
That, we'll take that as a little bit of an introduction of some of the people that are here. None of us want to take any credit, except I will take the credit for some of the bad filming in there where you can hear my voice in the background and some of the glitches in the editing, but that's all I will take credit for tonight. I don't know that I said I'm Heidi Roland, and then here on behalf of Roland Funeral Service, my parents, Warren and Amy, and our full-time staff, Sarah Hackenbach-Wood, and my husband Larry Hinman. Our full-time guy here running the video and sound is Clayton Brady. Our other full-time person is Ian Bars. You're probably familiar actually with most or all of our faces. We've also got one of our part-timers here, Mike Conley, in the back, who will be helping throughout. And Trevor Beckendorf, I apologize, I thought I said you. Trevor is also here with us. He is literally a freelance funeral director. He works for several different funeral homes, kind of on his own, and he's been a lifesaver the last 5 or so years. Sarah and I kind of both came in and just jumped in with both feet 7 years ago, I think, 7 and 8 years ago between the two of us, and due to health issues with my folks, just kind of took off running, not quite sure what we were about in terms of working together in Roland's, and it's just been a beautiful thing, a beautiful relationship to grow with her and with each one of these. So Trevor came in a year or two later, and it's just been a lifesaver to get Sarah a few breathers along the way. And now my husband has just graduated a year ago from Witchward School, and joined us full time, and he's interning and trying to glean everything he can from the two best funeral directors we know, so that he can be a backup and they can have an occasional break as well. We're just so grateful again, as I said, that you're here. And at this point, I believe, Mr. Hoyt, I will invite Monty Hoyt to come. And he's going to share just a couple minutes of his story and why he's doing what he's doing tonight.
Thank you, Heidi. I'd like to just start out with a hymn called My Hope is Built on Nothing Less. began whistling. I would whistle all my life, on my farm, just to myself. I was really good, I thought to myself. When my dad passed away suddenly in 2000, it was very therapeutic. For myself. And then later, a few years ago, my mother became had dementia. She had to go to the home. She could no longer go to the church with Emma and I. And so after church, Emma and I would go visit her at the home. And I would take the bowl to Mom. And I would whistle each hymn that we had sung at church. And I could see in her eyes, it meant a lot. And from then on, after my mom passed away, I felt a calling that I should share my gift with others. And so I whistled at retirement homes, etc. Where I am tonight. I'm not good in front of people, and listening and being nervous is not real conducive, but I'll do my best. And I like to do a medley of patriotic songs.
My grandma Roland is looking down from above, smiling right now. One great thing that I think we failed her, well, there were several, but that we failed her in is she wanted one of her 6 grandkids to be a professional whistler. And none of us ever really did it, so you are officially inducted into the family. Thank you very much. So powerful and meaningful. At this time, we have a very special guest. He's had many personal tragedies that he has dealt with. We didn't let them, however, stop him. He's dealt with tragedy on a personal level and very personally on a national level. And I would like to stand and welcome the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you, Monty, for sharing with us. Throughout our lives, most everyone faces loss, grief, oftentimes regret. And yet some of the most difficult losses and grief come about when we lose loved ones. What I want to do is share with you a little bit about the loss of President Abraham Lincoln endured. You'll learn about those in a few minutes. On a more personal level, his family. But much broader than that. When I get to that point, I want you to imagine what it must have been like to have carried the weight of the grief of the families of over 600,000 men that passed away during the Civil War. I can't imagine. And they did carry it very personally, which you'll see in just a little bit. And we all heard the Gettysburg Address, and we kind of look at it and say, wow. But put that in perspective also, which I will describe to you when we get there. 50,000 men lost their lives in 3 days there in Gettysburg. So let's look back into history and follow a little bit about our 16th president. And following that, I will share with you a little bit of my own personal experience. I lost my mother back in August of this year. But 34 years before that, I lost my father. And I want to share with you a little bit of the emotion, the grieving process that I went through during that time. But first, let's visit with President Abraham Lincoln. I was born February 12th, 1809, in a small cabin in Kentucky. I had a sister named Sarah, just a few years, 3 years old like myself, and my mom called me one morning. We had a meager beginning. I was especially attracted to my mom because she just seemed to take extra care in me. Paul was always, get the chores done. Get out and get this done. But Mom took interest in my even learning, which was quite little at that time. When I was 7, Paul moved us from Kentucky to Indiana. The picture, we traveled 5 whole days and traveled 100 miles. I guess today you travel 100 miles in what? A couple hours easily. After arriving and then spending time building a cabin, getting the farm going. There was 2 years at that state. In fact, I was 9 years old when my mom, I felt was probably the strongest in the family. She was always the first one up, last on the bed. She was always doodling over the children. And on the morning, she didn't get up from bed. And then 2 mornings. She was very ill. I'll never forget the mom called me to her bedside, and she looked up at me and she said, Abraham, I'm going to be leaving you now. I won't be coming back. I know you'll be a good boy. Promise me that you'll love God and keep the commandments. I looked down at my mom's ailing face. She was so ill. And I made that promise that that's something that I'm doing.
Yeah, Abe, you're hitting the mic, the wire, but that's okay. Yeah, it's the wire in your chest.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Abe.
So if you step back a little more light on your face, if you can.
That works.
He wasn't the best looking man.
You look good.
He was tall as a number, like a gorilla, an ape, etc. We were 37 miles from the preacher, and we didn't have the facilities to have him come to have a formal funeral. So we buried him on a little hill in a tree not far from the cabin. A few neighbors came. Paul read a few words from the good book and did a simple prayer. The rest of the family went back down to the cabin, but I couldn't. As a 9-year-old boy, I threw myself in the grave and I wept and wept until weep anymore. Life was never the same after that. Never the same at all. Well, about 18 months later, Paul remarried. My new mom was just as kind as my first mom. In fact, she encouraged me more than my mother. Life went on forward, and when I was 21, Paul moved us from Indiana to Alaska. I helped him build a cabin, and we went on from there. And in 1842, I married Mary Todd. Have you heard the phrase, opposites attract? Oh my goodness, we were sort of opposites. But I loved Mary and she loved me, and we were blessed with 4 boys. Thomas was the oldest boy. We were so proud of Thomas, our first one. And then became a lady, Edward, of course. By this time, I'm an attorney. And well respected, so to speak, in those days. The difficulty was when little Eddie was only 4 years old. This is the year 1850. Eddie became ill, and then we lost Eddie. Oh, Mary and I we couldn't deal with it. We grieved for days and days. After that passing of Eddie, I actually spent several times going to a tent meeting in one case, reading some books, trying to grapple with the aspect of eternity and loss. I don't know that I found really true answers yet at that point. Our third son's name was William. He was kind of my favorite. Willie, we called him. Our fourth son's name was Thomas, named after my pa, his grandpa. Advancing on forward, of course, I was considered successful as an attorney in Springfield, Illinois. And then launched my political career leading very similar time. In fact, truth be known, I was involved in different elections. Of those 12 elections, I lost 9 of them. Oh my goodness, talk about But then in 1860, I didn't quit, and I ran for the office of president. And lo and behold, I won. Oh, what a time to be president. We were right on the threshold of the Civil War. The previous president was not doing anything to head it off. And so I inherited a tremendous problem trying to hold the nation together. In 1862, little Willie and Tad had not right noise. They both came in coughing and sneezing. They both became ill, but Willie didn't get better. Mary was so strict to care properly for Willie. I had to hire a nurse to care for him. And it was that nurse that really encouraged me with the word of God during this very difficult time. And yes, we lost Willie too. I don't think Mary was ever the same after losing Willie. But life does go on. Actually, I didn't know it, but Tad also passed away at the age of 18. I was already deceased. So the 4 boys that I had, only one survived to adulthood. But of course now we're in the midst of the Civil War, a time when our country was trying to really, who are we? What are we to do? Sure, of slavery. We'll also have to deal with the issues of states' rights and other issues also. I don't know how many times General Stanton, or I should say Secretary of War Stanton, would come to the office and have a list of young men who had fallen asleep on duty. They're 16, 17 years old. They have been punished, he said. We have to establish discipline. And of course, they had ordered court-martial or even execution. How many times I pardoned so many of those young men. My wife Mary would often visit the hospitals where the wounded, and when I say wounded, you can imagine the wound that those young men and older men endured. I also was in the habit of going to the different hospitals and visiting, trying to grasp the pain, the sorrow they were experiencing, went on to imagine their mothers and their fathers and their families. On our cot in the military hospital, Major Charles H. Hood was dying. He had been commanded for tactical strategic command allies, in which the full fury of his attack in an attempt to break through the lines against Major Houghton in nearly 20 years. We'll take all the sciences to people in Georgia. Help came at last. The gray men were beaten back, and Lee's desperate move was checked. Houghton's leg was amputated just below the hip, and he was taken to the hospital at comparative peace on a clean. But for days he lingered on the hospital. It seemed to those who watched him and across that mysterious line. Yet each morning with friendly he's alive. That's all. At 9 o'clock one morning, the door.
Just use the mic, yeah. Yeah.
Whatever happens to the middle switch over.
At 9 o'clock when the door opened,
You want to turn your mic?
Dr. McDonald stepped in and announced, "Attention, the President of the United States." There outside the door, with sunlight streaming in over his shoulders, stood the President.
Yeah. Should be good.
Bending my awkward frame, I stepped to the door. The door was low. And caught after caught, I paused to say the message of purpose, sorrow through each of the soldiers that I met. We came to Houghton's.
said that you don't know it was lunch. I don't know what's in your hearing. I'm so sorry. I think that might interfere with the system that we didn't even know was on. I'm so sorry.
Just get this cut off. I can speak out too. At call after call, I paused to see a word of comfort to a wounded soldier. I hope to stop because this is the man who was so young. This is the man held for last. I motioned for a chair. It's these new genes. I motioned for a chair. Suddenly, a nurse placed one beside the cot. Hope he could not know that I was there, as though it was part of the hopeless. First the sufferer, I placed my hat softly on the floor. And I reached over to take his wasted, colorless hands, and my hands of iron strength. Just a suspicion of pressure, but hope opened his eyes. I have heard of your bravery and courage while standing in battle. I am proud to be your fellow countryman. Houghton uttered a few feeble words. With his poor, toneless voice, I winced. But the doctors had told me that he would die. And then I asked to see the wound which was taking so noble a life. Doctors and nurses tried to dissuade me, but I insisted the horrors of war are for me to bear as well as others. To me, this wound was a thing holy. Bandages, long and blood-stained, were removed. And I saw. Oh, this war, this awful, awful war! Hot tears burned down my face. Slowly I leaned over the cot, and the tears carried the dust and grime that traveled from my face and stained the white sheets on which they fell. There were the little hospital doctors and nurses and men watching. I took the pallid face of Hope between my hands, and I kissed it just below the damp, tangled hair. My boy, you must live. You must live. The first sign of warm, throbbing life came into those dull eyes. With the conscious elastic effort, stiff in the cot, he managed to bring his hand to his forehead, the nearest to come to a salute. I leaned over to hear the faint, faint words. I intend to, sir. And he did. But that was one of hundreds. Thousands. Like I mentioned before, over 600,000 that did not survive. The war continued. All the devastation of war, and especially civil war. There were cases in our work where cousin was fighting against cousin, brother against brother, father against son. In fact, in our own family, Mary, being from Kentucky, a slave state, had brothers fighting on the other side, which caused indefinite tension, especially in Congress. And it did not look good for the Union. It seemed like we lost battle after battle after battle. I couldn't get a general to take the battle to the war to end this thing. Finally, in the summer of 1863, the battles of Vicksburg and Gettysburg took place. In the Gettysburg battle, there were over 90,000 Northern troops, 75,000 Southern troops involved in that three-day battle, July 1st, and 2nd, and 3rd. In those 3 days, we lost over 50,000 men. A citizen, Mr. Wells, of Gettysburg, after the battle all settled down, talked to the mayor and then to the governor, and it was decided that there should be a national cemetery on that battlefield. Plans were made. Mr. Edward Everett, the most renowned orator of the day, was required to give the main address. Initially, the date was set for October 19th. But Mr. Everett said, I can't be ready in such a short time. And so they moved the date to November the 19th. 3 weeks prior to the event, I was contacted by Mr. Wells and asked if I would come down to say a few words at that dedication, which I agreed to do and began to prepare. On the 18th of November, I boarded a special train along with another number of other dignitaries, and we traveled down to Gettysburg on the train. That night I spent in Mr. Wells' home. There was a reception at his home that evening, meeting people, talking to people. I was tired, quite frankly. The war was wearing me out. I asked to be excused relatively early in the evening, slipped up the steps of Mr. Wells' house, and that's where I spent the night. The next morning, about 9:30, I stepped out on the porch. A large number of people gathered to participate or at least observe this dedication. They tell me that nearly 19,000 people had come. They brought for me a magnificent chestnut stallion. I mounted, sat tall and straight in the saddle. The band led the way to the cheering crowd, followed by myself and other dignitaries and several of the officers who had participated in the battle. As we approached the scene where it took place, I couldn't help but notice the sod had been torn by cannon and powder. The tree limbs had been broken by cannon, and as I looked across, there were hundreds, no thousands of little mounds of white crosses. They had prepared a platform from which we were to speak. Mr. Everett, his daughter, and myself stepped up the platform. A few announcements were made, and the band played the dirge, which is a sad funeral song. And then Mr. Everett was introduced. He spoke for over 2 hours, after which the crowd erupted in clapping and cheering. It was a magnificent speech. And then I was introduced. Stepping forward, I removed my hat from my head and I slowly stood there, turning my hat in my hands. It was quite obvious I was having difficulty controlling my emotions. Finally, someone stepped forward and took my hat. 7 years ago, our fathers fought for our love this continent's invitation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation can survive. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to set aside a portion of that field as a final resting place to those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, struggling to have consecrated far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will note what we say here. But it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be dedicated here to the great task remaining before us. That from these honored dead, we take increased promotion to that cause for which they gave the last overmeasured devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, but that this nation under God shall renew birth of freedom and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I was finished, I stepped back. And there was no response from the crowd. There was no cheering, there was no clapping, it was quiet. I left Gettysburg that evening thinking that my speech was a total failure. A few days later, I received communication from Mr. Pepper. The man spoke for 2 hours. I spoke for 2 minutes. In which he said, if I could have said in 2 hours what you said in 2 minutes, I would consider my speech a success. Indeed, the Gettysburg Address became one of the most renowned speeches in history. Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge may make away. Because God wills, He is one we must look at all times. I can't imagine at this point what it was like, or what it would have been like to have lost a son. So you have, or a mate. So you have an uncle, an aunt, and grandparent. Like I said before, my mother passed away August 28th, just this last year. Months ago. Before that, my father passed away 34 years before that, back in 1986. Let me set a little bit sad here. I left the farm thinking I'd never come back. Not that I hated farming or my family, there must be something bigger out there. I went to college, graduated college, went into the corporate world. By this time, I've got a wife and 3 children. And we knew that the corporate world, the city life wasn't for us, so we moved back to the farm back in 1976. Farm with my father and my brother. I loved farming with my dad. You know, when you're short cows, short hogs, they can be aggravating. And boy, that brings out the worst in you at the times. You know that, don't you? For sure. I honestly did. When we were working the field back then, we plowed. I'd be going this way, and he'd be coming this way. We'd wave at each other. My dad and son, I was in my 20s, late 20s. I enjoyed working with my father. And then, just on the Father's Day, when I got the news, May 1985, we were working in cancer. And surgery in July, we thought we had it all. Things looked better. Been going better. But then come December and January, they said it was progressed to bone. During that 9 months, 8 months since my father had left my father, it's just not, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or just a man thing, but you don't say you love each other a whole lot. But during those few months, I think my dad and I broke through that barrier. Numerous times, I told my father I loved him and I enjoyed working with him. I'm so glad I did because we lost him in April of 1986. That was very difficult for me. I remember down at Roland's, the family was kind of gathered back in room where my dad was to rest. And my uncle and aunt were there, and I broke down. I just broke down. And one of my uncles tried to come over and calm me, so to speak. I always appreciate my brother. He just came over, ushered my uncle out because he knew that I needed to grieve. I needed to hurt. I needed to get out. It didn't stop there. For the next, I would say, 5 to 6 years, every now and then, I would wake up in a sweat and dreamed of my father. I saw him just like it was today, that he was alive. See, I was with him the night he died. Everyone else was gone. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I was next to bed in the hospital, and I stretched out to try to get some cheap sleep on. All of a sudden, I heard my dad call out, "Lee, Lee!" "Yes, Dad," I went over. And I sat there beside him bed. Probably a few minutes later, we talked a little, but not much. And then I remember exactly when he went unconscious. I remember telling him, "I'll take care of Mom. Don't worry, Dad, I'll take care of Mom." You know, the strangest thing was for me was that for the next several years after that, I said I had a dream of my dad. I could see him. It was like the very picture I see it there. And I didn't call him. I wanted to see my mom because I hurt so much. Perhaps some of you have felt that way at times. I should go see someone, but it just stirs up emotions and memories that hurt so much. A number of times over the last 34 years before Mom's passing, she was 97, almost 98. She expressed to me, "Why am I here? Dad's gone to glory. I know he's with Jesus. I'm ready to go to glory. I have no question that's where I'm going. Why am I here?" All I can tell Mom is, I don't know. But I do know you're here for a purpose. She prayed. At that time she had 20 plus grandkids. Well, she was the grandkids. She probably had 8 or 10 grandkids and 20 plus great grandkids. That's what it was. And she prayed for them. And she wrote letters. She wrote notes to hundreds of them, it seemed to me. And so this last spring, of course, we went to see Mom. We visited the Atlantic Specialty Care. My brother is very faithful, going nearly every day. He has his own issues coming back. The COVID hit. We're all familiar with that this winter. And I couldn't get to see her. Standing outside the window, looking in with a phone, and someone up kind enough to hold a phone to her, talking to her, it's just not the same. And you all know that experience. And fortunately, the weekend before she went home, we were able to get in to see her. It was a hospice. We had the mask up, gown up, we went in. I'm so thankful. But 3 times during that weekend, I remember saying, "Alone. Alone." Well, that was a weekend. My sister had flown back to South Carolina. It was near the next day or two. She went, couldn't speak. My wife and I went to see her, and you could tell that she could hear us. The brow would furrow right here. She tried to say something, but she couldn't say it. And I always heard hearing is one of the last senses to leave. So we would talk to her, we would sing to her. And then that Friday, she passed away. I'd have to be honest with you and say I didn't struggle so much with my mom as my dad. Simply because I think I made my peace with her. I told her later on that week, "It's okay, Mom. We'll see that. It's okay." The funeral was probably different. Sarah's helped us so much during that week, preparing everything. All 14 of her grandkids came. Because we call it a celebration of life, and sometimes they are, and sometimes they try to be, and sometimes this really was. At the funeral hall, all 14 grandkids were around the circle. Gene and I were meeting, people coming through, and they were over the corner playing a game. And I think I told, I don't know, maybe Heidi or Sarah, you know, Grandma would appreciate seeing them laughing and playing a game. And at the funeral, I wept. All 14 got up and sang, "How Great Thou Art." They knew who she was. We knew how great God is. My brother, I think, had a more difficult time, but I think the cold, and after I talked to him, probably helped him because it kind of, he was there every day until the cold hit. But the point is, we all grieve to some extent in different ways. My mom, she was 97, she was definitely ready to go. She was wanting to go. Some of you, in his 20s, maybe 30s. No, my age right now, 50 is young, 60 is young. After all, I'm 200, how many years old? I think it's important to realize that our confidence and our assurance must be in God. Our rest must be in Him. In Psalms it says that our days are numbered. God knows the length of our life. So I can, upon seeing that, I can rest and say, okay, I can't go too early or too late. God has promised my days are numbered. So I can rest in that. It also says in Psalms that the death of the saints are precious in His sight. He's walking with the Holy. And as a believer, we have that confidence. If you don't know Christ as a believer, you may not have that confidence, but you can have by trusting Jesus. And so, I can say I struggled more with my dad, with my mom, who was a wonderful homeowner. And for you that are grieving, still hurting, like one of the slides will say, it doesn't quit, it just changes. It just changes. And I think the thing I'd like to leave you with is Abraham Lincoln lost a mother, two of his sons, young, 4 and 11, and then later on he took upon himself the responsibility, the weight of losing so many young men in battle. I think we can realize he grieved for them. It's all right to grieve. It's all right to weep. It's all right to hurt. I said many times after I'm gone, no, my loss is her gain. My loss is temporary. Her gain is eternal. And that's helped me understand and go through the whole grieving process. Thank you for the privilege of sharing from Lincoln's life and our life. Encourage each other. We need each other. In this time of pandemic, we need each other.
I'd like to whistle Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Okay, this time I'm just going to give a few instructions to those who are watching the live stream today. We thank you for joining us. It's been an amazing spiritual gathering, and we have a little bit more here left that we're going to do here. But the thing that we're going to do next is watch the memorial slideshow. And we'll just gather together and just grieve and mourn together and remember well and with joy and the happy memories. For those who are watching the live stream, this is the time that we're going to stop the live stream and have you go back to our website. And if you'll just click on the memorial slideshow there, you'll be seeing the same thing that we're doing here. It will just come across a little bit better in your homes. Before we do that, I just want to give a little instruction for those here in the room as well. We do have supper